So you have been asked to hold a TED Talk. That's great. Big honor. Now you have already maybe some experience with talking in front of people, but it's maybe your first TEDx talk or TED Talk. Now, how do you do this? How do you approach it? How do you bring it down to maximum 18 minutes? Or let's say maybe even 12 minutes or so, 10 minutes, even better. You have a big topic, you have something that you are very passionate about, but how do you build it up so you create a video at the end of the day that people really stick to? That they do not only watch the first 30 seconds, that they really watch it to the end. So they really follow your message and follow your call to action. That's what this video here is all about. It's here to coach you, to give you a little guidance along the way to craft your TED or TEDx talk. And the good news for you, it's not only like here a tip and here an advice. I'm showing you a clear system called the key message canvas that will help you craft a TED talk and any kind of talk that you want to hold in the future. So let's dive into the topic. Oh, by the way, my name is Fabio Sandmeier. I'm a lecturer at the Lucerne Business School. I'm responsible for our local TEDx events speaker coaching, and I'm the developer of the key message canvas. This is the map of what I'm going to show you in this video. I'm gonna show you how you first analyze your audience and then create your messages and introduce them. We will look how you create your talk, how you create a good structure, how you make it elevator ready, how you create unforgettable key moments, how you master the art of storytelling. And the third part is how you master your performance. It's about creating interaction. It's about talking for the ear and not for the eye. And using the potential of your voice. And finally, I give you some tricks how you master your mind, how you master nervosity. This is the key message canvas. You find, by the way, all the material that I'm showing you in this video as a mirror board in the link below in this video. And there you also find the PDF template to download. The key messages, the key message canvas that I'm going to show you, you can use in various ways. You can draw it on a piece of paper. You can stick it to a wall or to a window with some Scotch tape. The good news here, you can even look out of the window while you're working. Or you can use a virtual whiteboard like the mirror board. And here are also the links to my profile at Lucerne Business School and to my company where I give speaker coaching and company trainings for better presentations in the meeting rooms. So what is the key message canvas? Key message canvas is a simplification of 7 elements that create a good presentation. You can use it for a presentation or basically for any communication event where you want to deliver a message and you have an audience that you talk to and you want to convince this audience. So when you fill it out, you follow here these numbers, the 1 to 7. And on the right side, we look at your audience. What are their desires? What are their fears? And what are the key questions they might ask themselves when they enter the room or when they click on a video. Then you answer these key questions with key messages. And you then support these messages with arguments such as facts or examples. And this is kind of the rational part of your argumentation. And we also need an emotional part, and that's where your mission comes in. You also need to say why you are doing what you are doing. What's the kind of friendly goal that your audience wants to support you. And finally, you have a call to action. You have an action that you wish your audience to do immediately in the room, back at their desk, or just ultimately. And once you have these 7 elements together, you can work with them. You can build up an introduction, a main part, and an ending, and can experiment a bit what works best for your topic. So here are 3 advice, what's important when you fill it out. When you fill out the key message canvas, it's very important that you first start with defining who you are and which function do you appear, and into which audience you talk to. Now with the TED Talk or TEDx Talk, it's a bit difficult because the audience could be basically everyone. But if you want to create everything for everyone, you create nothing for no one. So how do you bring it down? In this case, try to create personas. These are illustrative people. This can be someone that actually exists, that you know, or it can be just a fictive person. And try to say, I'm doing it for Jim. He's 53 years. He has experience in banking and finance, but he's now in a midlife crisis, asking himself what he should do next. And here I give my advice for something. So you actually talk to a specific person, and if somebody else who does not correspond with that persona also watches that video and finds some benefit, then even better. But it's very important that you do not only talk to a camera when you create such a TED or TEDx talk, that you really imagine a specific person. Then make sure that you create a contrast between desires and fears. This is the intro of your talk. This is where you're gonna start. It's the first kind of dynamite that you throw into the audience. And it's very important that you really try to, that you really take your time here and make sure that they jump off their seat because it really hits their nerve. Then you follow the numbers from 1 to 7, and once you've finished, try to prioritize your argument. Not everything is necessary to be told. You can also reduce it to only a few things. So in order to reduce your arguments, you need to check out your call to action here and ask yourself what arguments are necessary in order for the audience to perform the next step. And then you realize that maybe only 1 or 2 arguments are necessary, and the rest you can just keep for yourself. If it's a TEDx talk or if it's a business presentation, you just create a little annex with some slides that you just have at hand if it's necessary, but that you do not actually show. As a result, you will have a balanced speech that is interesting because you really craft the whole speech based on the audience's interest. It's successful because you go towards a call to action, and it's not longer than needed because you really bring only those arguments that are actually necessary. And you have a blueprint to create an introduction. That's the right part, a main part, which is this pyramid, and the end part. I will come back to this as the next step. Now, let's create the talk. So, let's first start with the structure. When you do an introduction, these are possible ways. You can use this upper right segment here and say, imagine X, Y. So we start with a sentence like this. or you say you probably know the situation and continue with a fear of the audience. And then you say, today we're going to answer the following questions. That is very important because you want to give an overview about what's going to happen, because you as a speaker, you are the only person who currently knows what this speech is going to be about. And if you want people to continue watching a video, they need to know what's going to be a topic of that video. And then when it comes to the main part of your talk, you basically repeat the question, give the answer, and deliver the necessary arguments. And then at the end, you can throw the second piece of dynamite in the audience. Like, I'm calling it dynamite because this is emotionally very attractive, that you talk about your mission. And you have two elements of the key message canvas that are emotionally very appealing. One part is the right part, where you say the desires and fears. That's what you use in the intro to get the attention. This part about your mission, you want to maybe keep until the end, so people get another impulse and are really eager to follow your call to action. So that's why you should wait with this until the end. But as I said in the beginning, experiment. Maybe you want to start with your own mission, with the story, why this topic is so important to you. Maybe this is how you want to start, and you maybe want to just repeat this at the end again. This could be also a way. Here it's important that you experiment a bit. So you start with that and say, and that's why we need to blah, 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 blah. And then you repeat again the audience's desire. That's very important. Many TED speakers, they only talk about what they have in mind and why it's important to them. But don't forget that this is an audience and you serve this audience as a speaker. That's what matters. And if you manage that the audience gets the feeling that they are being served and this is a speech for them, and this is not just a speaker who is super happy about the stage that he or she got. If you manage that the audience gets this feeling, then you really create a very good, very attractive TED Talk. As a result, you have a AAA presentation. AAA because there are 3 A's here. It gets the attention, it is attractive, and you bring people into action. Here are several ways how you can create an elevator pitch. There are different ways. It's also called like a big idea. And you can perfectly use the key message canvas to nail it down to a 1 sentence or 2 sentence pitch that could be probably the intro of your presentation, or you just use it for the announcement of your speech. Let's say you have a web page that you talk about the speech, or you have a social media post. That's where this elevator pitch kicks in. And one way is that you say, in order to X, we need to Y, or if we don't do Y, we risk X. The other way is to say the trend X is becoming more and more important. That's why we need to do Y. And the third part is that you say, I believe we all should, or the world should be, and then you talk about your mission. And that's why we need to, and then you talk about the call to action. So when you create the speech, I guess you want to be kept in memory. But how do you do that? Here are some tips. But let's first dive into this differentiation. Check out these 2 notes here. Which situation do you probably remember better? It's fascinating that something that is very long ago is probably better in your memory than something that has just happened today morning. And that's because of this hormone called dopamine. And if something is connected to very strong emotions, it creates this dopamine, and it works a bit like hairspray to your brain's synapses. These synapses, they create, that are the connections between the nerve cells in your brain, and usually they don't hold for long. But when there are strong emotions, they are just fixed. And how do you make use of this dopamine hormone? It's about creating key moments in your presentations. And there are 3 ways how to create strong emotions in a talk. You can create aha moments, for example, with an object that you bring into the room, or an interaction that you actually let happen with the audience. Then you can create personal stories. You can bring in personal stories, or you can talk with metaphors. You can use big numbers and then show what these big numbers could actually mean. And in the Miro board that is linked below, you also find you find some examples how this could be done. And this is where you can apply it during your talk. You can apply it when it comes to the intro, but also during the argumentation section, or when you talk about your mission. Now let's talk about storytelling. Storytelling is very powerful because people love to hear stories. You hook into a story, and it's very easy to lean back and to listen to something that is being illustrated by a good story. And if you have something rather abstract to tell, it's super important that you tell also the story behind. And it's no problem if out of a 11-minute talk, 6 minutes are a story, and then 5 minutes are actually the facts behind it. People will listen to these stories, and you can apply it when it comes to specific argument, or when it comes to telling your mission, why you're doing what you're doing. Then the art of storytelling is very important. There are some basic ingredients of storytelling, and then you can also go a bit crazy with the hero story. But let's first start with some basic ingredients. It's super important that when you tell a story, when you tell an example story, that you have a precise starting point. It's about who is involved, where this happened, and when it happened. And finally, you need to make sure that all the elements of your story are being told in a chronological order. As simple as that. But this is very important, and this is like the basic ingredients of storytelling. And now when you have enough material, when you have a good story to tell, and if you want to tell a really touching story, it might be worth to dive a bit deeper into it and to tell the so-called hero story. And this is my simplification of how a hero story looks like. You have a starting point. There is a hero, which is the protagonist of a story, and this hero has a problem and finds a solution. And that's when the way of the hero, the journey of the hero starts. And then on this journey, that's where it gets very interesting to listen, because the hero has some resistance and gets support, has a resistance, gets support, has a resistance, gets support. There are, for example, some enemies or some fears, doubts here in the way, or there are some, on the other side, there are some supportive elements like friends or enemies that turn to friends. A book that the hero finds, an idea that the hero gets, just any kind of support. And that's what makes it interesting, this to keep listening to this wave here. And at the end, that's like the third section of the story, the hero arrives at the destination, the hero reaches a certain milestone, and at the end you give a little outlook on what's next on the horizon, what vision is there still left. That's a simplification of the art of storytelling, and it might be very helpful for you when you are about to think how you should illustrate a good story that you want to involve in your talk. So once you have set up your presentation, you might ask yourself, how do you make now the most out of this talk? And this section here is about to give you advice how to master your performance, how to fine-tune it. We're going to talk about interaction, about talking for the ear, about using the potential of your voice, and about the mindset. Interaction is all about throwing tennis balls into the audience. What does that mean? First way of throwing a tennis ball into the audience is to actually throw it into the audience and getting the ball back. So you give a question, ask a question, and you get an answer. Now, when you craft a TED Talk, that's rather difficult because it's a video. So this might be possible when you have a live stream, or when you have the possibility to maybe even actually talk with the audience. There are some TED Talks, TEDx Talks, where a speaker actually asks a question to the audience, but usually this is the case for other kinds of presentations. But if you do, make sure that you don't ask too open questions. Rather ask questions that they can answer with yes or no, and not W questions like what or who or something. The second interaction form is a rhetoric question. It's like throwing a tennis ball into the audience with some backspin, so it lands in the middle and it jumps back. That's when you just ask something that is maybe a yes or no question, but you actually don't wait for an answer. You just make sure that people already know that they don't need to answer, but they are being a bit waken up, like, oh, there's a question, there's a tennis ball being thrown at me. The third form is the call to think, and that's what especially people who are in management positions, they love this, and they don't have that very often in presentations. So when you hold a presentation in front of a management board, that's the interaction form you want to go towards. You don't want to go to the question and answer thing, because that's maybe reminds them to some school environment. You rather go to the call to think. You throw them a tennis ball and say, keep it. And that's what you could do when you talk about your mission. You can say, imagine what it means if people around the world in their meeting rooms would give great presentations. Imagine what this means for productivity and for motivation. A call to think. I'm not waiting for your answer, but I'm triggering your brain. And that's the sort of interaction that is also very well integratable in a video, in TED Talk, TEDx Talk, because you actually make a call to think. You ask people to think along. And that's super important because people love to be activated. Now, this is about making something ear ready and not only eye ready. Ready for the ear means that you build short sentences with a simple structure and simple words. That's simplicity. That's important when you talk about the desires, the fears, your mission and your arguments. It's important that you orientate, because you are actually the only person in the room who has a plan of what's going to be talked about. That's why you need to give an orientation, the key questions at the introduction, and say, what is the talk going to be about? And also during the talk, you give some signposts and say, this was now the first part, Now let's jump to the second part. That's the orientation. The repetition means that you repeat important phrases several times. That's important when it comes to your key messages and your call to action. That's why you maybe want to give a little overview here right in the beginning already what the key messages will be, and in the end you want to sum it up again. And finally, it's important that you create distance between facts so the audience can really digest some new information. That's super important because many people, they just think that a presentation needs to be as fast as possible because you don't want to get you don't want to occupy too much time of your audience, but the secret is that you need to take your time a bit so the audience can actually digest what you are saying. And that's especially important when you then talk about, when you mention your arguments here. You can do this by giving examples, by telling stories, by creating interactions, or by simply making a pause. Watch a video of Barack Obama's speech. He's the master of doing pauses. He's literally making a pause after every sentence, just in order to make people follow him and digest what he just said. The most important instrument of your rhetoric appearance is your voice. How do you use your voice? How do you use the full potential of your voice? Here are some simple tricks. It's about melody, pauses, and speed. Melody means that you actually variate a bit, whether you go a bit lower and a bit higher. This is naturally coming up when you talk to a child or to an elderly person. You automatically go a bit lower with the voice and a bit higher. And try to use this also during your TED Talk. Try to use it during the next business presentation because it makes you look much more calm, much more natural, because you have a natural melody. Many of us, when we are under stress, we tend to start to sing. That means that you have the same melody pattern that you just repeat. You da 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 da, you da 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 da, you da 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 da. And when you don't pay attention to that, you maybe fall into this trap. So very important, make sure that you are calm in your mind and watch for a natural melody where you vary a bit between rather deeper and a bit higher areas. This is especially important when you talk about your own mission, when you talk about the desires of the audience and the fears of the audience. When it comes to the key messages and the key questions, try to make pauses. As I mentioned before, pauses are a very good instrument of letting the audience digest what you have just said. And you can make a pause before saying something important or after saying something important. If you make a pause before something important, you just create some tension. And if you make a pause afterwards, you give the audience time to think about what you've just said. Like now. And eventually you can also use an appropriate speed. Meaning, if you have something rather new, you slow down. You make like a time lapse. And when you talk about your arguments, it's important that you use a corresponding speed. This means if something is rather new, you slow down. You make like a slow motion. You talk rather slow if something is rather hard to comprehend. But if something is very easy and they've already heard it before, then you can speed it up a bit. So these are some tricks how you can use the full potential of your most important rhetorical instrument, your voice, because your voice transports your personality, your emotions. It's the thread that goes through your whole presentation. How do you overcome nervosity? We all are nervous, and nervosity is something natural. You probably heard that already 100 times. Yeah, it's okay to be nervous. But hey, we don't want to be too nervous. We want to be enthusiastic about something, but we don't want to be totally afraid that we have a blackout and don't know what's going to happen on stage. So here's the trick how I master nervosity. I acknowledge that, yes, I'm excited about it, but I'm excited about it. I'm not afraid of the talk. And I'm excited about it because I have two anchors here, two mental anchors. The first anchor is I know in the key message canvas why I'm doing what I'm doing. What is my mission? And I know why I'm delivering a value for the audience. And these two things I keep in mind when I step on stage. It's the last two things. I say, why is important to me? I want to make the world better by making it easier for people to deliver good presentations. And what is the value? They start liking presentations. They start motivating other people and are able to sell their ideas. Okay, let's get out there and hold that speech. I believe that the world needs good presentations, because when innovative and creative people can really express and sell their ideas, that's when real development is happening. And that's why I developed the key message canvas and keep on doing presentation training and coaching. My name is Fabio Sandmeier. Thank you for watching this video. And if you want to train your team with the key message canvas, feel free to contact me. I'm doing company training and coaching in English, German, online and offline. And if you are a TED or TEDx speaker, I wish you good luck and enjoy your stage. And never forget to use the key message canvas when you prepare for it, because if you want to express your ideas, you need a clear structure and a clear message.